I trust you, you trust me, and anyone that we bring on the team, we know that trust is like that box is checked off, right? So we can just operate with that. I think that is very helpful, if not the most helpful. The other thing is like in a teamwork environment, just knowing that you have your teammates' backs, they have yours, and that you genuinely care about them. So not only, of course, from like the objectives that you're working on at work, but also just like as a person outside of work, like what's going on in their lives. Like I think that's really important because that way you can have conversations around wellness.
So, hey everyone, my name is David Howe. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Bright Breaks, and I've decided to start a new experiment where I'm going to be interviewing HR and people leaders at companies of all sizes and asking them to share their advice, their tactics, their stories, their strategies on how they implement and create a culture of wellness in a remote and hybrid working world. So today is the first episode that we're doing. And to make it easy on me, I asked the Bright Breaks chief of staff and my coworker, Jared Perry, to join us and kick it off and do the very first episode of this interview series. So thanks, Jared, for joining.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, David. Happy to be here.
Appreciate it. Jared and I have worked together for a few years now. And Jared, as I said, is the chief of staff at Bright Break. So he, as a small company, serves many of those roles that the HR people leader would do at larger companies. And of course, at Bright Breaks, we have a very strong culture of wellness, given that we're a wellness product and we put a very big emphasis on it for our team and our values. So Jared, maybe you can kick us off, just give a quick intro on, who you are and maybe even a little bit about the company for those that don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, David. So hey, everybody, my name is Jared Perry. I'm the chief of staff at Bright Breaks. And basically what that means is I help lead our service operations team and work directly with our CEO, David, here on the call on some projects. And our service operations team really is all those individuals who deliver our services. So it's the educators that lead the breaks. And then it's also a couple of my teammates, Christy and Jesse, who are responsible and execute a lot of the breaks and planning and scheduling that go into delivering our content. We're part in-person, part hybrid, part remote. So we have a little bit of an interesting operating model that way where we deliver breaks like on site from studio locations. Our service ops team works somewhat remote, somewhat hybrid. So in office, sometimes at home. And then for the most part, the rest of the team is remote. And just a quick thing about Bright Breaks, we're a B2B wellness platform. And we basically help employees take breaks during the day, and our kind of angle on it is live breaks. We also do have a pretty robust on-demand library of 350 breaks that are on there and growing. But that's really our mission, is to help prioritize and inspire well-being, and we do that through helping employees take breaks, especially those who need them. So
yeah, and as you mentioned, our work environment, so we're kind of a mix of remote, hybrid, and on-site, depending on the team member. And a lot of our team is actually educators teaching the content in our physical studio. So of course there is an on-site component, and I'm actually at our studio today. So I'm working out of our office here. I do the hybrid approach. Jared's obviously at home today, working one of his days at home. And then we have teammates kind of across North America. So probably not much different from a lot of companies these days, working hybrid, having teammates across the world. So how, Jared, do you think about approaching wellness when you have that mix of working environments for the entire team? Because you're often obviously leading a lot of the things that we do on the initiative side with wellness. So how do you think about tackling that for each different component of someone's work environment?
Yeah, well, I think everyone's different, and everyone on our team, I think, thinks about well-being differently. So that's kind of an important piece to highlight. But kind of starting from the top down, I think one of our core values is wellness matters, which of course, David, which is an important one to help be able to refer to. So for myself, I can point at the wellness matters core value and say, hey, are you well right now? Do you need to take some time? That kind of thing. One of the things we do a lot just at Bright Breaks, due to the nature of our product, is we invite teammates to take breaks. So you'll see all kinds of invites flying around of just, hey, come join me on this break, join me on that break. which also is pretty fun, and that's a nice part of it. And I think the other thing that we do is we can weave some of these breaks into meetings. So, at our town hall, for example, we always kick it off with some sort of wellness break. We kind of experiment with some of these things internally ourselves. Typically, that is something to do with well-being. And I think just like generally, it's important for us to take care of our team. We've talked about this a lot before, but everyone on the team has such an important role, especially at our size, and of course at other organizations as well. But when someone's missing for a little bit of time, you really can feel it, right? And things can start to slip. So, and that's easy to happen, especially if people aren't well or people are facing burnout. So the way kind of we think about that is just getting ahead of it by making sure you're taking the time that you need to, take care of yourself, whatever that means to you.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk a lot about, taking care of yourself first, because if you're not 100%, then the company and the team's not 100%. So that's obviously really important to us. Do you see, or do you have like any challenges? So we obviously do a few initiatives beyond just using our own product, and we'll talk about those. But are there any challenges with building that culture of wellness with, say, the Vancouver team versus the Halifax team, who you might see more regularly?
Yeah, well, I think I think with the remote, or with not being in front of someone on a not daily basis, but weekly at least, it's hard. It can be hard. So there certainly are challenges with that. But I think, in an asynchronous or in work environment where people are in different time zones, it's important to be able to just have those conversations in check-ins or one-on-ones, and just like generally seeing how people are doing. And then just if things are rising up that you're noticing, like, hey, you're not well, or there's some trends, then being able to use trust and talk about them, and then help, plan some interventions, or say, hey, you should, consider taking some time off soon, or hey, how are you feeling? And just being able to have those types of conversations. So
yeah. And that's a good point on the trust, because that is one of our core values as a company, of course, is, trust matters. And that means that, somebody who may not be feeling 100% feels comfortable and trusts, their manager, and in this case might be you, to actually relay that information, and then you have that, you can work with, versus having to kind of uncover it. So that's part of the opportunity, is building a culture of trust that really hopefully translates into people being comfortable to share how they're actually doing on a day-to-day or weekly basis.
Yeah.
As we mentioned, we have teammates, in Halifax, in Vancouver, in Toronto, in California, really across the board. And, I think where you touched on some of the challenges that the remote team might face versus people who might be on site once or twice a week, is that connection piece. If I bump into you at the office on a Tuesday when you're here, we get that kind of impromptu conversation. That doesn't happen online. So what are some of the initiatives that, our company has run with our team that, might be interesting to others, or you've seen some success with?
We've run our own challenges, like our own kind of well-being challenges, which has been a good way to, be social around like a good topic. So new features that people might see on Bright Breaks, we've usually like tried them out internally first to get feedback, or just to kind of see how they could run. We did an interesting challenge. David, this one, that because we brainstormed it, but it was around getting every single person from our team to take X amount of breaks. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was over a time period of 3 or 4 weeks. And, it averaged out to taking 2 breaks during that week, I believe it was. And if every person took that average break, so let's call it 8, it was either 8 or 6, I can't remember. But if everyone took those breaks, then the entire team got a pre-established well-being day off. So it's like a full day off. And that was a really fun one, because it kind of rallied the whole team around the same objective. Even to the point where some people are typically scheduled on that day, and they're like, oh, whatever, I want to support the cause anyways. So that was a really good one. And, in that well-being day off, everyone spent it differently. Some people went for walks. Some people went camping. Others spent time with their family or with their kids. For me, I went out on the trail, went for a hike and a run. So that's been a successful one. We've also just run challenges before for prizes. One of the more recent ones that we experimented with over the summer was the walking challenge. So, we basically offered our team an opportunity to win prizes for going for walking breaks. And when they took that break, they had to drop a photo of it in a Slack channel. And I think one of the more interesting or surprising things that came out of that was some of the interactions from the photos. Some people were taking really nice photos, or we got to kind of see a unique view of someone's walk or their surroundings. And that was really nice. And then one other thing we've recently started trialing is like putting team members into pods. So these are just people who might not normally get to meet up during a regular workday or whatever it is. And that they're groups, essentially what they are is groups of 3 or 4 people. And they're just teammates from Bright Breaks. They get connected once a month in kind of like a virtual chat similar to this. And then, they'd have a few prompting questions. Really, it's just about to get them to connect and get to know one another. So that's one of the newer things we just started to experiment with.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think, the thread that I see between all of those is a connection thread. So a lot of it is trying to encourage connection. So whether it's taking walking breaks and sharing those photos, whether it's doing the challenges where everyone has to kind of come together to solve it. We at Bright Breaks view connection as kind of a core pillar of wellness. Obviously, we try to build it into our product, but we do it, on other initiatives that are non-Bright Breaks product related that we've seen some success with. And I think personally, one of the ones that I think has been the most successful is that wellness day off. And for those out there, the way we did it was everybody took the same day off. So there was, no pressure to be available, no kind of Slack notifications happening. You kind of felt that ability to disconnect. What kind of feedback did you hear from the team? Was it, was that the kind of stuff you heard around the wellness?
Yeah, everyone was excited and everyone enjoyed it. Everyone took some pictures and but yeah, everyone was like excited about it. And I think it's reminding me we should probably do another one soon. Yeah,
we should get around.
I think the other thing with it too, Dave, is that I think it sets a good example for like others. Like I think that if there's people out there who want to instill more wellness in their teams and their culture, like I think it does say like, hey, we're pretty serious about this. And it is a good initiative to try to like ingrain it into the day-to-day more and more. And I do think that was probably the height motivation for everyone as well. Like I think that's probably the most motivated anyone's ever been, is like a day off to pay a day off to do whatever. I think that worked really well.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, and I'm sure many can relate, and like if I were to take a day off, but the company's still running, like I'm still going to be getting notifications, and my nature is to want to really get in there and help solve problems and be, move things forward. So for me personally, those wellness days as a company really are a lot more impactful than, a typical day off, because it allowed me to truly disconnect. So I think, it's a good call to think about doing it again. As a small company, I think, so we're 20 or so people, the bigger companies have probably different ways to do this, but how do you think about measuring like the effectiveness of these kind of initiatives?
Being a small company, like you mentioned, we're able to just kind of ask, right? So we have that kind of culture established where we can just ask, and we already talk about well-being enough. So we hear kind of firsthand stories or anecdotes, or see pictures, or see, some feedback in Slack. Something like running a challenge through Bright Breaks, though we also have data, so we know who took a break, how many, what types of breaks they might have been. And, there's also some interesting things we can do with the data that we do get, so we can export it and kind of, split it up depending on how we want to run our challenge. So the other thing I'll mention too is just like experimenting with things, right? So we obviously can get the feedback, but running something and then iterating on it based off of the feedback that we do get and trying to make it better, even if it's just a little bit each time, is an important piece of that too. So we'll run something. It doesn't mean we'll do it the exact same again, but that there's probably a piece of it that we could iterate or improve on.
Yeah, 100%. And from like a technical standpoint or tools, say other than obviously our own product, what have you leaned on to really help support these types of initiatives?
I mean, there's some communities that I've been like just part of. There's one called People Ops Leaders that I'm in. It's just some other folks that are people leaders. So that's been really helpful just to get a sense of kind of what other companies are doing, and it's been a good wealth of information. And then of course we've used Slack to communicate our breaks, maybe track some of them, like in the case of the walking breaks, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, and one thing that just came up to me is, obviously in our relationship, you have your department and your team you're working with, and as a CEO, I have my own things that I'm working on, and those always, oftentimes a big priority. But what I appreciate working with you is you're kind of actively trying to get ahead of some of these. Obviously we're aligned on the value, but my head isn't always in the, okay, what's the next initiative or what's the next thing we're going to do? And you've done a really good job of kind of bringing those, making them visible to me and making them a priority in our one-on-ones or in our conversations. And I think that is something that if you're an HR leader, if you're a people leader, it is important to make these conversations, visible with your manager or your boss or your CEO, because that's how they're going to get done. If they don't, they might just get swept under the rug. And so yeah, a lot of credit to you, I think, for making it, top of mind and a priority.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that.
We've talked a little bit about the values that matter in building a culture of wellness. We talked about trust. We talked about just the general wellness values. Or anything else that comes to mind as maybe a value or a theme that we've done that you think is a strong contributor to our culture of wellness?
Yeah, I think trust, as you mentioned, at the very most, kind of operating as if that is the table stakes, I guess, or that, I trust you, you trust me, and same thing. Anyone that we bring on the team, we know that trust is like that box is checked off, right? So we can just operate with that. I think that is very helpful, if not the most helpful. And then I think the other thing is just in a teamwork environment, just knowing that you have your teammates' backs, they have yours, and that you genuinely care about them. So not only, of course, from the objectives that you're working on at work, but also just as a person outside of work, what's going on in their lives. I think that's really important, because that way you can have conversations around wellness. If you understand that someone isn't just made up of the time they spend at work, but it's also their family life and, their hobbies and, the other things that they enjoy to do outside of the work environment, then, it'll help with those conversations that you are having. And then I think that, the other one that's important is to have leadership demonstrate the importance of well-being. So it's important for, in our scenario, if we're talking about taking breaks at work, that we're taking breaks or we're inviting team members to take breaks. Because then they'll be like, okay, well, I see others doing it, I'm definitely gonna do that. And just generally leading by example. So making sure that, we're getting our hands dirty with taking time and having a well-balanced life as well.
Yeah. And a really good point on understanding what people are doing outside of work. And one thing that we've done a good job at, and you've kind of headed that, is, whether it's a long weekend or, recently it was a Labor Day weekend, we kind of had a post in our general channel that said, hey, share a photo or share a story of what you did on the weekend. And the whole team almost kind of got involved in that. And, we learned, okay, one of our educators, had her engagement photo shoot, and that happened. And so that led to, connections happening, and, someone did this new food or whatever. Little things, but those little things do add up into kind of building that, understanding who your teammates are, and obviously on the trust side too. So this has been good, Jared. Really, really enjoyed this. I guess in a kind of a final wrap up question, what advice or kind of recommendations would you have to, another people leader who's thinking, how do I build kind of a wellness focused strategy, or how do I implement some of these initiatives for my team in a remote or hybrid working world?
I would say just do it one step at a time. Sometimes things can seem really overwhelming. So try to pick out one micro thing that you could focus on, and then test it out and iterate and gather feedback from your teammates. I think that wellness can be really fun, right? It doesn't have to be stuffy or anything like that. We live in a pretty cool age where, wellness can actually be a lot of fun. And I think if you can make it transparent as well and involve your whole team, that'll be helpful too. Because with that, you'll probably get a sense of what wellness means to others and what's important to them.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being the very first interview here on this series. So appreciate it. I think it was really fun. Really enjoyed it. Excited to share this. If you watch this, really appreciate it. We're going to be doing more of these with other HR leaders across the globe, and asking them similar questions to hopefully try to inspire others to implement a culture of wellness and how to do it for their remote and hybrid teams. So thank you, Jared. I appreciate it. We'll be talking on Slack later. And thanks everyone for watching. Take care.